What would you do if you walked into a supermarket and saw a bunch of maniacs brawling like savages, all just for half-priced bentos? Would you be brave enough to join in on the chaos, or would you maybe just order from Uber Eats next time? Our story begins with Sato, an ordinary high school boy, who's laying bruised and bloodied on a supermarket floor with no memory of how he ended up there. But upon getting up, he sees a woman staring at him through the window. She mouths something to him, but he can't quite make out what she's saying. And perhaps due to the blood loss, he mistakenly believes that she's confessing her love to him. The next day on his way to school, Sato runs into a girl named Hana, who's excited to see that Sato miraculously survived his injuries, but he has no idea who this strange girl is supposed to be. When they arrive at school, she is kidnapped by Ume, the student council president, while Sato is distracted by a familiar face carrying several trash bags, and he's roped into helping her throw them out. The two then talk for a little while, but their conversation is cut short when she warns him not to come to the supermarket again and walks away. Unfortunately, Sato is a completely broke student who lives alone, so he has no choice but to return to the supermarket later that night, and is surprisingly joined by Hana because she says she simply couldn't resist the allure of burning manly passion. When they enter the supermarket, the duo heads for the half-priced bentos in the back, and are immediately beaten black and blue. But as he loses consciousness, the last thing he sees is a girl in nylon stockings, being referred to as the Ice Witch by another one of her victims. He's awoken moments later by a supermarket employee, who explains that every night, brave fighters referred to as wolves battle for half-priced bentos. But he tells Sato that puppies shouldn't mess with wolves, and warns him not to come back to the store again if he values his life. Sato must have lost one too many brain cells, however, because he returns to the store the next night with Hana, and as soon as the store employee drops off the bentos and returns to the break room, the supermarket erupts in a brutal fight club. Sato simply stands there and watches as ordinary people suddenly turn into savage animals just for discounted food. Meanwhile, Hana is in complete awe of this display of manliness and even cheers on other fighters. Sato then decides to join the fight as well and is able to hold his own for a little while, but right when he's about to get knocked out, the Ice Witch appears before him and saves his life. She proceeds to gracefully weave around the battlefield as she kicks the butt of every person there and effortlessly proves that even men multiple times her size are simply no match for her raw skill. Seeing an opening, Sato attempts to reach for one of the last remaining bentos, only to find himself comboed by two wolves, followed by the Ice Witch's signature kick. As he once again lays on the supermarket floor bloodied and beaten, the Ice Witch tells him that only the strong get to dine on bento, but that if he wants to learn how to survive the battlefield, he should come see her tomorrow morning at school. The next day, the Ice Witch introduces herself as Yarizui and forces Sato and Hana to join the half-priced food lovers club by pressing her milk cushions against Sato and flustering him. She then explains that although bento brawls may seem barbaric, there are actually a number of rules and etiquette that wolves must follow. Namely, fighting can only begin after the god of discounts has placed the half-price stickers, and fighting ends the moment someone successfully claims a bento. Additionally, supermarkets are controlled by the most powerful wolves, with the Ice Witch being in control of several supermarkets in her territory. That night, Sato and Hana head to a supermarket that Yarizui had recommended, but are wiped out before getting their hands on any bento. They decide to visit another supermarket and surprisingly run into Monk and Goatee, two fellow wolves, who warn them about a middle-aged woman nicknamed the Boar, who has no respect towards the god of discounts nor for the rules of bento brawls. Before the god of discounts even has a chance to finish placing the stickers, the Boar rushes in, and although the wolves try their best to stop her, they are ultimately unsuccessful, and the Boar claims all the bentos for herself. The wolves can only stand there and watch in disgust as the Boar disrespects the god of discounts and forces him to apply the stickers to her bentos. The wolves who are unable to claim a bento must shamefully settle their raging appetites with cups of instant noodles instead, a tradition that Sato and Hana are forced to partake in that night. Despite this, the two still find enjoyment in sharing a meal together. The next day at school, Ume warns Sato to stay away from Hana and slaps him repeatedly until he understands. She even snatches Hana away from him later that day, in an effort to keep the two apart. Because of this, Sato is forced to go bento brawling by himself. But when he arrives at the supermarket, he once again runs into Monk, Goatee, and Brunette, who warn him that the appearance of a professional rugby team known as the Tempest, as well as the appearance of the Boar, would make it impossible for them to claim any bentos, and they decide to head to another supermarket instead. Sato, however, decides to head back inside the store and simply settle for a cup of noodles, when he's approached by a wolf known as the Wizard, who asks him if he would truly be satisfied with a meal he hasn't earned. This reignites Sato's pride as a wolf, which causes him to sprint towards the boar and attempt to stop her from getting all the bentos again. He's unfortunately knocked away, but the wizard steps in and uses the boar's momentum against her, causing her to crash just as the god of discounts finishes placing the stickers. The supermarket quickly erupts in an all-out violent brawl, with familiar faces rejoining the fight to maintain their pride as wolves. And as Sato and the wizard trade blows back and forth with several other fighters, Sato finally learns what it means to be a wolf as he beats his new friends and claims his first bento. He returns to the clubroom afterwards and is surprised to find that Yarizui was waiting for him. But when she notices that Sato's first bento has a special laurel wreath seal, she explains that those bentos are incredibly rare and difficult to come by, because they are hand-picked by the god of discounts as their favorite bento, which makes every brawler desire one. Yarizui then opens up the scrapbook detailing the club's many victories, and invites Sato to place his laurel wreath sticker in it. But after doing so, he notices the wizard's name under one of the stickers, and realizes that he was once also a member of the half-priced food lovers club. The two then give thanks to the food, the gods of discounts, and their fellow wolves, before enjoying their victory bentos together. The next day, members of the Kendo Club, who refer to themselves as the Hounds, are seen plotting to take over the nearby supermarkets. That night, Sato and Hana run into Yamahara, a member of the Hounds, who invites them to join their group, which is surprisingly run by a teacher at Sato's school. The duo are somewhat reluctant to join, but Yamahara still hands Sato his group's jacket, which has a very unfortunate label on it, and promises to show Sato exactly how the Hounds operate. Yamahara then sprints towards the bentos and signals the Hounds to clear a safe path for them by holding the other brawlers back, so they can all effortlessly walk in and grab a bento for themselves, giving the Hounds a foolproof way of getting guaranteed bentos every night. They then return to the school's gym to enjoy their winnings together, but Sato notes that the food isn't as tasty as he expected it to be. Sato and Hana then return to the clubroom and inform Yarizui of the Hounds and their methods, and she remarks that half-priced bentos are one of the best kinds of cuisine imaginable, and that someday Sato will come to understand what makes them so delicious. For the next few days, Sato continues to brawl with the Hounds and feast on their winnings together, but no matter how much they win, Sato becomes increasingly unsatisfied with the taste of his bentos. On one particular day, however, Yarizui reminisces about her past victories while looking through the club's scrapbook, and recalls how she gained the title of Ice Witch by winning a bento brawl during a snowstorm, which was also the day she learned the true beauty of bentos. That night, Sato and Hana head to the supermarket and partner up with the Hounds as usual, but instead of grabbing his free bento box, Sato pushes the Hounds and breaks their formation. He then throws Yamahara's jacket away and tells him that he rejects his invitation to join the Hounds, because he believes that bentos should be earned. And as chaos erupts among the Hounds and the other wolves, a pissed-off Yamahara attempts to take Sato on in a one-on-one fight, but proves to be no match for a true wolf with pride. Their teacher then arrives and strikes Sato, but sees that he had already managed to grab a bento. Hana uses this opportunity to sneak past them, and grabs a bento for herself as well. But despite being outplayed by both of them, the teacher tells Yamahara to give up on pursuing the duo, because a hound will never be a match for a true wolf like Sato. Sometime later, Sato is woken up by his cousin Ayame, who attempts to tease him with her feminine allure, but he sees through it and rejects her advances. They then spend the rest of the day playing video games together, and Ayame uses her expert skills and great personality to distract Sato and win the match. The next day, Sato meets with Hana to retrieve a spare uniform of hers as a favor for his cousin, which he was forced to do after losing to her. And when Sato visits their clubroom later that same afternoon, he finds his cousin wearing Hana's uniform while teasing her. As they talk, Sato is shocked to learn that Ayame is actually a famous bento brawler too, nicknamed the Beauty by the Lake, and that she wants to compete against the Ice Witch to see if she's truly as strong as the rumors say. That night, on his way to the supermarket, Sato finds his cousin dressed up in a fancy dress, which Ume had forced onto her as punishment for wearing her precious Hana's school uniform. The two then enter the supermarket and meet up with Yarizui, and both girls agree to go after the same bento as part of their duel. The battle begins shortly after, and Ayame swiftly makes her way through the battlefield to reach Yarizui. But as they fight, she finds herself hampered by her dress and is knocked down by the Ice Witch. Ayame brushes this off, however, then gets up, grabs chopsticks, and fixes her dress before continuing her fight against Yarizui. But despite putting up a much better fight this time, she is still ultimately defeated by the Ice Witch. Meanwhile, Sato brawls against Ren, a similarly skilled wolf, as they both have eyes for the same bento, and both men refuse to yield. Sato eventually overpowers Ren, however, and finds himself victorious for yet another night. Meanwhile, a mysterious man is seen monitoring the various supermarkets as he discusses his plan to eliminate every top wolf and overtake their territory so he can become the undisputed king of every supermarket. Sometime later, Sato is seen half-naked in his cousin's school dorm as he tries to run away from a security guard that's hell-bent on keeping him away from Ayame. Thankfully, Sato is eventually saved by his cousin, but he accidentally dropped a supermarket flyer in the process of running away. Ren picks up this flyer and informs his boss of its contents. Meanwhile, Sato has no choice but to wear a girl's uniform as well as a silly hat in order to disguise his identity from the security guards. This doesn't really work, however, and Ayame is forced to distract the security guards with her beauty while Sato runs away. With no time to change, Sato arrives moments later at the supermarket, still in his weird outfit. Yarizui doesn't have much of a reaction to this, but Hana gets excited, while Ren is embarrassed to have considered Sato his rival, when he's clearly just a degenerate. Ayame arrives shortly after and warns the Ice Witch that they are in the monarch's territory, but Yarizui explains that she is just here because Sato saw a flyer for a special bento here that he wanted to get. After the god of discounts places the stickers, the fight begins and Sato manages to hold his own as usual. But when he goes up against his cousin, she gets the better of him and manages to snatch a bento before he can. Yarizui also manages to grab a bento, as is expected of the Ice Witch. Suddenly, a group of brawlers surround Sato, and the monarch makes his appearance. He begins to brutally beat Sato without remorse, as Ayame and Yarizui are unable to interfere, since they've already claimed a bento of their own. As the monarch deals the finishing blow, he declares that Sato's blood signals the start of an all-out war between the East and West Side supermarkets. Sato awakens moments later in the care of Matsuba, the store's god of discounts. His friends arrive shortly after to make sure he isn't too badly injured, and provide him with a change of clothes as well. Ayame, who is a wolf from the East Side supermarkets, then informs them of the monarch's plan to attack and overtake every supermarket in the West's territory. At that same time, Matsuba laments that all of this might be her fault. The next night, Yarizui meets up with the other Western wolves to inform them of her plan to raid an East Side store alone, and leave Sato and Hana with the defense of her West Side territory. Meanwhile, Ayame decides to do some research on the monarch, and learns from a former wolf that the monarch stole his nickname from Matsuba after she was defeated by the wizard and retired from bento brawls. His plan isn't to tear down the Western wolves, but to prove that he is the strongest wolf by defeating the Ice Witch, because she is the wizard's successor. When Ayame then informs Sato of this revelation, the two realize that Yarizui is walking into a trap and race to find her. But on their way there, they overhear a crowd saying that a high school girl was beaten badly and see blood on the ground. Yarizui then arrives at the East Side supermarket bloodied and beaten, but maintains her resolve to defeat the monarch. Seeing the state she's in, Ren tries to plead with the monarch to stop this madness, but he's swiftly beaten up instead. The monarch then orders Matsuba to place the discount stickers. And as she places them, she reminisces about how the wizard, the monarch, and her used to be friends in high school. Sato and Ayame arrive to back Yarizui up as soon as the stickers are placed, and an all-out brawl erupts as usual, with the Ice Witch still styling on all the other wolves despite being injured. The trio eventually win the fight by comboing the monarch together, with Sato landing the final hit in a very stylish fashion, and putting an end to the monarch's plan. Afterwards, Yarizui grabs a regular bento, while Sato and Ayame fight over the special laurel wreath bento, which Sato manages to win. But despite this, the girls still snatch food away from his bento as they celebrate their victory together. Meanwhile, in another supermarket, a wolf is seen beaten up by two mysterious fighters. Sometime later, Sato visits a supermarket in the East Side, and sees the monarch badly beaten. Elsewhere at that same time, Ren warns Ayame about a dangerous pair of wolves nicknamed Orthros, who are named after a two-headed dog from Greek mythology. That night, Sato visits another East Side supermarket and runs into a pair of twins from Ayame's school, oblivious to the fact that they are also wolves. When Ayame arrives to the supermarket moments later, she finds that all the wolves have been beaten to a pulp, including Sato. She carries him out to safety, and when he reawakens, Ren warns them that Orthros are likely to go hunting for Yarizui next. Despite these warnings, Yarizui and Sato head to a West Side supermarket, and are surprised to find Ayame there as well as the twins, since all three of them are East Side wolves. As the stickers are placed, the twins immediately reveal themselves to be the infamous duo nicknamed Orthros, and defeat everyone with their signature combat style of using shopping baskets. Yarizui manages to hold her own against the twins for a while, and continues to fight despite being heavily injured by them. To everyone's shock, however, the twins use their special attack, which defeats the Ice Witch and leaves her bloodied and beaten on the floor. As the twins leave, they taunt the Ice Witch by expressing their disappointment in her skills. Once they arrive home, the twins gleefully celebrate their victory over one of the most famous wolves, and reminisce about the moment they first witnessed Bento brawling, and decided to become wolves. The next day, Sato learns that Yarizui is homesick with a fever, so he decides to visit her at her home. While there, he fantasizes about the two being alone together until she snaps him out of his delusions by informing him of a special eel bento that will be sold at the upcoming Midsummer Festival, which Yarizui desperately wants to get her hands on. Later that day, Ayame informs Ren and Sato that she recently found out that the twins were once wolves in the town of Yumehiro, but that they were somehow defeated there. She then sends Ren to that town to investigate further and hopefully find out their weakness. Meanwhile, Sato has Ayame pass a message along to Orthros that the Ice Witch will have her revenge during tomorrow's Midsummer Festival. But when Sato returns to Yarizui's place that night, he's worried to learn that her fever worsened after she mistakenly fell asleep with the air conditioning on. Despite this, she still insists on fighting Orthros. Meanwhile, Ren learns from a wolf in Yumehiro that Orthros were indeed once wolves in their town, but they left 3 years ago after being driven away by a wolf known as the Club of Hercules. That same night, the twins have a nightmare about their encounter with Hercules 3 years prior. The night of the Midsummer Festival, Sato turns off Yarizui's alarm after she falls asleep, and leaves a note saying he'll bring the eel bento back to her so they can enjoy it together. On his way to the supermarket, he runs into Hercules, who gives him a surprising proposition, which causes Sato to run away just as the other wolves begin to arrive. The twins arrive shortly after as well and remark how delicious the eel smells, but they suddenly drop their baskets when they see Hercules standing before them. As Sato continues to run, it's revealed that 3 years ago, when the wolves were tired of the twins always defeating them, Hercules organized a boycott of the twins by allowing them to simply walk up and choose whatever bento they wanted, with the other wolves refusing to fight until they did so. This broke the twins' hearts, and with nobody willing to fight them anymore, they were driven away. The twins believed things would be different now, but to their horror, Hercules reveals that he organized the exact same boycott today, by once again convincing all the other wolves not to engage the twins in battle. As they walk out of the supermarket, they are shocked to see that Sato, their last hope, completely ignores them. The sisters plan to leave, but upon hearing that the eel bento has a special laurel wreath sticker, they decide to go back and grab the free bento even if everyone else refuses to fight them. Hercules welcomes them to go ahead and grab it, while the other wolves stand by and watch. Suddenly, a strange sound is heard throughout the store as Sato's stomach begins rumbling loudly. It turns out that Sato had run around to intentionally wear himself out and build up his appetite. This causes a chain reaction, where other wolves' stomachs suddenly start to rumble as well, which reignites their hunger for battle. Soon after, an all-out brawl erupts just as usual, and a pissed-off Hercules attempts to make Sato pay for ruining his plans, but is simply beaten down by him instead. Meanwhile, the twins watch in awe as they are once again being welcomed by their fellow wolves thanks to Sato, and soon join in on the fight as well. At the end of the day, however, the twins lose and are reduced to shamefully eating cup noodles, but they're happy to be sharing a meal with fellow wolves for the first time. Elsewhere, Sato returns to Yarizui with the special laurel wreath bento in hand, and the two happily eat it together just as Sato had promised her. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this anime recap.